being there. An hour or so later, the company were all assembled once more in front of the longhouse with their backpacks, sleeping rolls, and now with a filter bottle each, which Nut had brought along for each of them. The filter bottles were ingenious, a handy 1 litre drinking bottle, but with a carbon filter built into the lid, which would hopefully keep them safe from tummy bugs along the way. All ready to go. Once the head count was complete, they were on their way. At first, they followed the contours of the mountain on a narrow path running northwards in order to come round to the best place for descent to the river. It was hard to guess the altitude of the place and how much descent had to be made. Muesli was used to following maps and loved to study routes, but today he followed along in single file, not worrying about any of that, just wide-eyed and mesmerised by the flora and fauna. Green and blue lizards and shiny golden skinks scurried away from the passing column as they marched on, and Muesli could feel 1,000 microscopic eyes on him as they filed through the trees, trailing with lianas. Muesli smiled to see another familiar brown and cream butterfly following along, zigzagging from one side of the group to the other. He liked to think it might be the same one that he'd met on the train. Why not? Nut, with his friend Patti, the tribal elder, led the way. The backmarkers were several village men carrying the field kitchen, Muesli presumed. Patti was a tall and very strong-looking man, probably of the same age as Muesli, dressed in a linen shirt and colourful sarong, and with a long greying ponytail. This was longer than Muesli's, and tied off with a colourful tribal pattern scarf. He carried a large machete and was clearing the way rhythmically as they went. Even though this was probably a well-used thoroughfare, the jungle grew so fast here that you might have to clear it again a few hours after you'd chopped through it. The forest floor at this height was a mass of lush vegetation and vines spiralling around everything. The trees were also home to magnificent ferns that grew in large bulbous masses under the elbows of branches, with huge antler-like leaves cascading out in greens, rusts and browns. The morning sun was just managing to peep through and sparkle off the millions of drops of morning dew still suspended in the spider webs that carpeted the forest. Each droplet reflected in every other, ad infinitum. It would have been nice, thought Muesli, if somebody had been banging a drum, quietly, to keep them in step, and wished that he'd thought of that. He had in fact brought along a PVC shakuhachi that a good friend had made. It was the simplest of things really, a piece of 1-inch diameter plumbing pipe, about 18 inches long, with 5 holes. The good thing about it was that it was virtually indestructible, and so ideal for taking on a rough camping trip. The bad thing about it was that he couldn't play it very well, so he thought it best to leave it in the bag for his solo time. He didn't want to get voted out at this early stage. The path now started to curve and descend, and a little of the landscape started to open up before them. Terraces of small rice fields stepping down the hillside came into view, all flooded, but with the distinctive green shoots measured out in rows growing across them. The cacophony of birdsong was magnificent, underscored with the drones of a million insects, all going about their business. Muesli looked down the line of bobbing heads in front of him as they descended the path. Patti was at the front, still chopping his way, Nut in an elvish cap right behind him, and then the rest of the crew in oranges and crimsons, blues and golden browns and greens. A few of the girls in the traditional tribal headscarves they had been given for the trip, all of them carrying their various high-tech and low-tech camping gears slung across their backs, and for now their anxieties, hopes and dreams carefully stowed away out of sight. As they got lower and the fields opened out, they could see a few water buffalo grazing peacefully below, down towards the river. Magnificent beasts, with their impossibly beautiful horns curving back and away from their noble heads. Muesli found it breathtaking. not only because he was overwhelmed with the rich fecundity of it all, but he was by now ready for a bit of a breather as his asthma was kicking in. There's a gorgeous passage in the Hermann Hesse novel Klingsor's Last Summer, probably Muesli's favourite quotation, where the painter Klingsor and his friends are descending into the valley of Pampambio for a picnic. They descended among the strongly scented spireas and wet spider webs quivering on the margins of the woods, down through the steep warm forest into the valley of Pampambio. Bright yellow houses slept alongside the yellow road, bent forward and half dead, stunned by the summer days. White metallic willows hung heavy wings over golden meadows along the dry stream. They colourfully walked down the rosy road through the misty green valley, the men in white and yellow linens and silks, the women in white and pink. Ursula's Veronese green parasol sparkled like a jewel in a magic ring. Hermann Hesse. Muesli must have read that passage 1,000 times during his lifetime, and now he was in it.